Well, this is Mark Abel, and today I'm going to be reading from John Michael Greer's The Archdruid Report Facing a Hard Future. The essay is The End of Employment. Nothing is easier as the long descent begins to pick up speed around us than giving in to despair, and nothing is more pointless. Those of us who are alive today are faced with the hugely demanding task of coping with the consequences of industrial civilization's decline and fall, and saving as many of the best achievements of the past few centuries so that they can cushion the descent and enrich the human societies of the far future. That won't be easy. So, the same challenge has been faced many times before, and quite often it's been faced with relative success. The circumstances of the present case are in some ways more difficult than past equivalents, to be sure, but the tools and the knowledge base available to cope with them are almost incomparably greater. All in all, factoring in the greater challenges and the greater resources, it's probably fair to suggest that the challenge of our time is about on par with other eras of decline and fall. The only question that still remains to be settled is how many of the people who are awake to the imminence of crisis will rise to the challenge and how many will fail to do so. The suicide of peak oil writer Mike Rupert 2 days ago puts a bit of additional emphasis on that last point. I never met Rupert, although we corresponded back in the days when his From the Wilderness website was one of the few places of the internet that paid any attention on the web to peak oil. I don't claim to know what personal demons drove him to put a bullet through his brain. Over the last 8 years, though, as the project of this blog has brought me into contact with more and more people who are grappling with the predicament of our time, I've met a great many people whose plans for dealing with a post-peak world amount to much the same thing. Some of them are quite forthright about it, which at least has the virtue of honesty. Rather, more of them conceal the starkness of their choice behind a variety of convenient evasions. The insistence that we're all going to die soon anyway being far and away the most popular of these. Just now. I admit to a certain macabre curiosity about how that will play out in the years ahead. I suspected for a while now, for example, that the baby boomers will manage one final mediagenic fad on the way out, and the generation that marked its childhood with coonskin caps and hula hoops and its puberty with love beads and Beatlemania will finish with a fad for suicide parties in which the attendees reminisce to the sound to the tunes they loved in high school, then wash down pills with vodka and help each other tie plastic bags over their heads. Still, I wonder how many people will have second thoughts once every other option has gone whistling down the wind, and fling themselves into an assortment of futile attempts to have their cake when they've already eaten it right down to the bare plate. We see some truly bizarre religious movements and some truly disruptive political ones. Before those who go around today insisting that they don't want to live in a deindustrial world finally get their wish. There are, of course, plenty of other options. The best choice for most of us, as I've noted here in previous posts, follows a strategy I've described wryly as collapse first and avoid the rush. Getting ahead of the curve of decline, in other words, and downshifting to a much less extravagant lifestyle, while there's still time to pick up the skills and tools needing to do it confidently. Despite the strident insistence from defenders of the status quo that anything less than business as usual amounts to heading straight back to the caves, it's entirely possible to have a decent and tolerably comfortable life on a tiny fraction of the energy and resource base that middle-class Americans think they can't possibly do without. Mind you, you have to know how to do it, and that's not the sort of knowledge you can pick up from a manual, which is why it's crucial to start now and get through the learning curve while you still have the income and resources to cushion the impact of the inevitable mistakes. This is more or less what I've been saying for 8 years now. The difficulty at this stage in the process, though, is that a growing number of Americans are running out of